Okay, we will now create a box plot using Google Colab and Python. So the first thing I want to do is download a few libraries or APIs. The first one is going to be matplotlib's pyplot. So from matplotlib, I want to import pyplot. And I want to import pyplot and give it a nickname. The nickname I'm going to give it is PLT. So I'm importing pyplot and I'm giving it the nickname PLT. Then I'm going to also import Seaborn and I'm going to give it the nickname SNS. So I'm importing Seaborn as SNS, and then lastly I'm going to import Pandas as PD. So those are the three libraries or APIs that I want to import. pyplot, Seaborn, and Pandas. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set the theme using Seaborn. So the nickname for Seaborn was SNS dot, and I'm going to use the set theme method. So set theme, and the theme I'm going to set here, I want to do style, and I want to let the style equal, in parentheses, white grid. So there I've set the style for my box plot. Now I'm going to actually create the data frame that I'm going to use to make the box plot, and I'm going to use pandas for that. I'm going to call the data frame df. So the name of the data frame is df, and I'm going to use pandas for it. So pandas nickname is pd. So I'm going to use the pandas method called read CSV. If you just start typing read CSV will come up. So read CSV, all I have to do is feed this method or function a file path in quotes. So to get the file path, I'll come over to my folder here where my files are. I'll find the file that I need in Google Drive or on my machine, and I'll come over to the three vertical dots, click it, and copy that file path. Copy the file path, and that's the file path I want to put into the read CSV method. So I'm going to paste that file path over here. That's the path to the file. So now this will create the data frame. To see what the data frame looks like, I can do df, which is the name of the data frame, dot head, open and close a parenthesis, and when I run this cell, it'll show me what my data frame looks like. It looks like I have a single variable in the data frame, and that single variable's name is variable. So that's very convenient. I'm going to go ahead and add a code cell. And this code cell, now I'm going to use this code cell to create the box plot. So I'm going to give the box plot a name. I'm going to call it AX. I'm going to let it equal. I'm going to use Seaborn to create the box plot. So it's going to be SNS for the nickname of Seaborn dot Boxplot. So if you just type in boxplot should automatically fill there, or you can type the whole thing boxplot. And boxplot is a method that's going to take a few inputs here, a few parameters. The first one is where I'm getting the data from. So the data is going to equal, well, I'm getting the data from the data frame. So data equals df, comma. Then after data, I have to tell it if I want to use X or Y as my axis. So I'm going to use the x-axis so that my box plot is horizontal. If you use the y-axis, or if you leave it to default, your box plot will be vertical. But since I want a horizontal box plot, I'm going to type x equals, and then I'm just going to give it the name of the variable I want to create the box plot for. In this case, my variable is actually called variable. So in this data frame, I'm looking at the only variable called the variable. So that'll create the box plot. In order to show the box plot, though, I have to use plt.show to show the plot. So when I press run here, there is the box plot. If you notice, this box plot has two outliers shown here. These two outliers skew this data positively, or skews this data to the right. because there's values that are really far away from the other values.